family members, if that's actually true.
I think America creates an atmosphere for people to achieve. So the American dream is just the ability to achieve. That's what it's about.
Like, is the American dream actually a reality for immigrants, or are they more likely to just face different types of hardships when they arrive? I don't know. Let's go talk to some people. I wanted to talk to these African migrants, but because they were being deliberately safeguarded by Border Patrol, that seemed very difficult. They were essentially being held in what's like a demilitarized zone, a single-lane patch of land between the port of entry and the actual border wall, which apparently American civilians cannot access unless authorized by personnel. Still, I drove 6 hours to get to this place, so I wasn't about to leave without at least trying to talk to them. Naturally, I began a westbound hike along the border wall, searching for a hole or an opening in the fence that would let me access where they were standing. Finally, I found a clearing in the fence and began my journey eastbound along the restricted pathway. Very quickly, I was apprehended by law enforcement.
Yeah, so the actual border road here is closed to anybody except law enforcement traffic, just because sometimes BP needs to kind of hoof it on you.
Yeah. Okay.
But you guys are welcome to take pictures or whatever from right here. Just get back to your car, do what you need to do.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. Thanks. Yeah. Pretending that our car was in the direction of the migrants, we continued our mission. And predictably, we're stopped again.
Have you coming through here?
Okay. We're just trying to find a good place to do some interviews with migrants where we wouldn't get...
No, these gates are closed and locked. The border's closed.
You guys gotta go the other way.
Okay. Where do you guys think's a legal place to get interviews and stuff like that?
Parking lot.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Somewhat disheartened, we ended up back at the empty parking lot where this video began. It seemed that Border Patrol was running a tight ship and being directed to deliberately mislead journalists. Or perhaps maybe we picked the wrong place along the border to begin our coverage. So we figured it was time to pack up and leave town. Then, seemingly from out of nowhere, an off-duty law enforcement officer approached us in his car and told us that we were just 1 mile away from the largest secret migrant detention facility in Arizona, which is embedded inside of a national park called the Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument.
You turn on Palo Blanco Road, I believe it's called. You go about a mile. It's conveniently hidden. Literally thousands of people, and people from all over the world. What they do is when they come through the wall, they shed any type of ID. So you can find passports, currencies, driver's license, visas from Guinea, from Mauritania, Sierra Leone, Chad, Ghana, Egypt, Thailand, Nepal. It's phenomenal. You see discarded strollers, suitcases, day packs, purses, neck pillows.
Not enough room.
I mean, these aren't the people that were crossing in years past that were just trying to get into California to make a living wage to send back home. This is a different demographic completely. Well, these are the guys bringing in the fentanyl. You know, it used to be the border crossers would get across the border one way or another, and then they had 20, 30, 40 miles to get up, 60 miles to I-8. It was very difficult and arduous. Now, no, the cartel makes it really easy for them. They simply step across the border and walk to the Border Patrol and claim asylum. I'm a pro-immigration person. We need immigration, but not this way. Not the way it's being done now, where no one has any idea of who these people are. It's just totally unsustainable.
What do you think's the right way to do it?
I wish I had an easy solution. I don't know, it seemed to me that Title 42 was working pretty well under a previous administration which required people to claim asylum upon the first country they hit rather than having it come right into America first.
So what is Title 42? The order started during the Trump administration. It allowed the government to turn away migrants to slow the spread of COVID-19.
The Trump-era health policy that allows authorities to immediately deport most migrants. When it ends, tens of thousands currently waiting in Mexico can apply for asylum. Authorities say they're preparing for a spike in migrant crossings, upwards of 10,000 per day.
How many people would you estimate are coming through?
But I would estimate certainly more than a couple thousand a day. But if you just run the numbers, with the numbers that we're seeing, if you even say 1% aren't the greatest people with the greatest intent, we're in danger. And it's being done to profit the cartels. Just using my own rudimentary math skills, I think they're making about $1 billion a month smuggling people into the U.S. What they do is they sock cut the bollards in the wall, and they pull them back and then funnel people through. And then when they close that bollard, push it back onto where it was previously affixed, you can't see, except for, I mean, there's a tiny little crack where they sock cut. So, and this happens all along that 12-mile section.
Midway through my interview with this man, I had a shocking revelation. This maybe, just maybe, was the same guy that I interviewed 5 years ago at the raid of Area 51. What are your thoughts on the aliens, man?
They're here. They're here. They're here right now. They're walking among us. 2 legs. Human-like. Oh, yeah.
Do you plan on raiding tonight, sir?
Oh, I've already been in.
What's in there?
They're in there. They're in there. Totally. Yes.
Anyways, man, thanks for the interview. Good luck. You're a brave soldier. I didn't realize this until after I filmed the interview, but looking back, it actually makes sense. In both encounters, he's on the outskirts of federal land, claiming the government is hiding some crazy shit that he himself just saw.
5 guys in camouflage from head to toe, black masks, with the camouflage backpacks running as fast as they could.
Yeah, that's a crazy situation. So for us as journalists, if we wanted to get the first-hand scoop of what's going on, you mentioned you felt like a processing center was the best place to check out.
Yes.
And that is over there.
I find it curious why it's hidden. Because logistically, it would seem to me to be much more efficient if they put it right up here on the highway. It seems like it was intentionally put 3/4 of a mile off the road so tax-paying citizens wouldn't see it.
You go in there right now?
Yes.
Can we follow you guys? All right, cool. I'll see you in a second, man. Thanks so much.
All right, so I guess we actually kind of are in the right place to find migrants to speak to. That dude that just pulled up and talked to us, he actually agreed to take us directly to the migrant processing center where everyone's being kept. He said that it's located like in a hidden location, 4 to 5 miles away from the state road that runs through this place. So we're just gonna follow his car and yeah, hopefully get some footage, guys.
To my surprise, my unbeknownst old friend was not bullshitting about the processing center. In the middle of the Sonoran Desert, hidden behind Border Patrol vehicles and makeshift tents, were hundreds upon hundreds of migrants, all of who hopped the US-Mexico border within the past couple hours. It was a shocking sight to see. Hundreds upon hundreds of people from all around the world, herded like cattle on the cold desert floor, sitting in silence, awaiting an uncertain future. Despite these conditions, spirits are generally high, especially among children, many of who have been walking, hopping trains, hitching rides, and so forth, for weeks and even months. Now, they've finally made it to the land of opportunity, a nation allegedly founded upon the principles of liberty and radical individuality, where anyone, from any walk of life, can make something out of themselves.
I guess they call them detainees. They've been walking on this road. This road runs for 12 miles, 12 or 13 miles. What it does is it parallels our border fence.
In our next episode, Migrant Detention Facility, we'll go undercover and speak with Border Patrol agents and migrants from across the world who are seeking asylum in the United States. We'll also follow a bus full of undocumented migrants and driven by ICE agents who pulled over and detained us after realizing they were being filmed. Like much of our content, this episode is available exclusively on our Patreon, www.patreon.com/channel5, As many of you know, Channel 5 is and has always been completely independent and supported and powered directly through your contributions. Thank you.
Channel 5 live worldwide, Hollywood and Vine. Fuck the authority, Channel 5 News. Channel 55. We don't fuck with costers. And 5 is the best number.
The Q shamans. His fucking scream. Fuck that guy. Hold up. Thought I had a cue ready. Hold on a sec.
Because most of these people have traveled in the middle of the Sonoran Desert, hidden behind Border Patrol vehicles and makeshift tents, were hundreds upon hundreds of migrants, all of who hopped the U.S.-Mexico border in the past couple hours.
There we go. Yeah, we're good.
It was a shocking sight to see. People from all around the world, herded like cattle on the cold desert floor, sitting in silence, awaiting an uncertain future. Despite these conditions, spirits are generally high.
What is that? Timberlake.
Because most of these people have traveled days, weeks, and even months just to get here. About 3/4 of them are single males, but there are also many children.
America is at a breaking point with record levels of illegal immigration.
These people's lives are at the center of the national conversation, but they could care less. They've finally made it to the land of opportunity, a nation allegedly founded upon the principles of liberty and radical individuality, where anyone from any walk of life can make something out of themselves.
I guess they call them detainees. They've been walking on this road. This road runs for 12 miles, 12 or 13 miles. What it does is it parallels our border fence. On the other side of it, on the Mexican side of it, is Mexican Highway 2. So the cartels have a really easy job. They just bring the people off of Highway 2 and then through the wall. The wall has many of those cuts that I told you about earlier, where they run the people through. And so the immigrants just walk down this road.
Right, so as you guys can probably see right here, that's a group of 5 migrants who just hopped the border, and they're walking directly into Border Patrol custody
to join the seated group of migrants that we just encountered.
So typically when you think of the border, at least me personally, I thought it was like people hop and then try to evade Border Patrol and make their way to a large U.S. city to start a new life. But in this case, you can see they are putting themselves directly in the custody of Border Patrol to begin the asylum seeking process. Like they're not trying to evade or anything.
A Border Patrol agent agreed to speak with us but didn't want to go on camera. Normally, agents are not allowed to be interviewed, and all press requests are typically deferred to a public information officer who rarely ever responds. But in this instance, the agent seemed exhausted and eager to tell me what was going on.
No, there's very few of them evading.
How come?
Well, because they allowed them in. They don't evade because they'll let them come in, they load them in the van, they take them up to Phoenix, give them a $3,000 gift card and a cell phone and send them wherever they want to go. You get a court date, you have 2 years to serve in court. That's the reason they give them a phone, because they're saying if they don't give me a phone, I don't know when I'm supposed to go to court. So they give them a phone.
At first, I was confused what the Border Patrol agent meant when he kept referring to they. To the naked eye, it appears that Border Patrol is the one handling and processing the migrants, but they're only the first step in a chain of bureaucratic authority that goes up to the Department of Homeland Security, then finally up to the Department of Justice's Executive Office for Immigration Review, which is more or less controlled by the Biden administration, who've taken a much more open-arms approach to immigration after pulling back Title 42 just about a year ago. But despite pushing for more lax border laws in comparison with President Trump,
the wall just got 10 feet taller, believe me.
Biden hasn't done anything to make the process of applying for citizenship any faster. In fact, it still takes between 18 to 24 months to get a response on a citizenship application. And it's actually possible to be denied citizenship if you fail to memorize and regurgitate fun facts about the history of America.
How many amendments does the Constitution have?
It has 27 amendments.
Good. Which
I don't even
group
know
of
that.
people were taken to America and sold as slaves?
Africans.
Good. Excellent.
So it makes sense why a lot of migrants, many of whom are facing desperate
27 amendments.
circumstances,
Didn't even know
avoid
that.
the citizenship
I was about to say
application
13.
process altogether. I wonder if my great-great-grandparents, who were economic refugees that fled Ireland in the wake of the potato famine, experienced such an arduous process when they arrived to America illegally. Unlike these migrants
From what I
who
know about
arrived
my
at the southern
family is
border,
that
my
on
family
my mom's
arrived
side
on
we came
boats to
to
Ellis Island 115 years ago.
came to the
Much
States
like Roberto and Alberto, who we
via
interviewed
Ellis
in our
Island,
previous
and
episode,
then
Arizona Border Crisis. They found
started
themselves in a
chilling
strange
in the
new land
Iron Range
with
in
pennies to their
Minnesota.
name. They had no particular plan, but what they did have was the willpower and determination
My dad's
to work
side,
as
no
hard as
idea.
they could,
I'm
with the
sure-
hopes of one day providing a brighter future.
I'm
for
sure
their
there's
family.
some bad stuff
And it
there.
worked. And
Hopefully
that's
there's
all
not,
thanks to
but,
Grandpa Jerry,
know.
who died 30 years before I was born. I wonder if he was asked who Paul Revere was, or what the Boston Tea Party was all about. Was there a concern back then that these migrants weren't American enough to join our society? Or is that way of thinking a new phenomenon, driven by the paranoia of a white minority?
An analysis of census data from the Brookings Institute projects the number of white Americans will fall below 50% for the first time ever in about 20 years, 2045.
Or perhaps it's less about race and more about the burden of inheriting global poverty, when we have so many problems of our own. I guess times have changed a lot too. It's not like there was fentanyl or cartels back then. And most immigrants plan to move to America forever, not stack up money here and go back home. I don't have the answers, but I do have a lot of questions. One question in particular: how can we, as Americans, expect to propagandize the entire world with our dream through Hollywood, the music industry, and the testimonies of self-made American billionaires, while simultaneously exploiting the labor, crops, and raw earth materials of developing nations, freezing the economies of our political opponents through trade sanctions, and creating rival drug cartels with our insatiable appetite for cocaine, fentanyl, meth, and heroin, and not expect a global economic refugee crisis at the southern border. But that being said, no matter where you stand on illegal immigration, I think we can all agree that our system, as it currently stands, is broken.
We have a legal process.
Yeah,
for
that's the least you could
immigrants,
say about it.
And it's being done by some, but it takes forever. You know, so it needs to be sped up for those with
Or is
skills
it?
and those who
Or
want to
is the
come and
system
build
broken?
skills and be Americans and
Or
be
is it
proud
broken
to be
system?
here and work and better
The
their lives
system.
and their families. And the treacherous journey that they have to take across the border and through the desert, you're losing lives that way. And so I just hope in 2024 we can rectify this problem and help those who want to get here legally.
It appeared that all of the migrants who were walking directly into Border Patrol's hands were approaching from a westbound road called Puerto Blanco Drive, a narrow dirt pathway running through the national park. So I decided to drive down the road to see if I could find some migrants to speak to. First, we see some signage warning us of what's to come. Truthfully, I don't expect to see much, but as I continue down the road, they seem to be spawning out of thin air from all angles. Most of them in a rush, we're told, because their cartel coyotes told them they had to get to the Border Patrol facility by nightfall in order to be transferred to a larger processing center or dropped off in a major city. But I noticed a group of a few of them walking pretty slowly, so I called them over to the car to see if they want to talk. How you guys doing? Where are you guys from? Senegal. From Senegal? You're in America. How does it feel? What's the plan?
Traduction, traducteur.
Okay.
Ah ouais, du continent américain. Ok.
Yeah. Can you guys tell me about your life in Senegal? How was your life in Senegal? Well, how you guys doing? Welcome to the United States. Where you from, man? Senegal. You guys are all from Senegal?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You speak any English?
A little.
Oh, cool. So how was your guys' life in Senegal?
The life in Senegal is very, very hard, you know.
Chaos and unrest in Senegal once again. The opposition leader urged supporters to take to the streets to protest against his jail sentence.
The political government is bad. Opposition are very difficult to manifest her problem. We are here to get another life for our family, for our people. We are very tired in Senegal. Senegal is very hard. That's why we come here to get another life, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. The American people is a good people. You know, they are democracy. They are good life. You know.
What kind of work do you want to do?
Me, I was a soldier in Senegal. So I do two years in the army. You know. After my 2 years,
okay.
I
killed
was
those guys.
a security private. You know.
Security.
Yeah.
Okay.
Security private.
So you're gonna look for a security job?
Don't know. But yeah.
Hey man, well best of luck, man. I appreciate you guys.
Okay.
Hope everything goes well.
Okay.
See you guys later. See you, man.
Thanks for talking to us.
Yeah. See you guys.
Bye, guys.
After stopping to speak for a bit, the group of Senegalese men headed westbound toward the Border Patrol facility. We, however, kept driving. As you continue to drive along the border wall, you can see people popping out from under the wall in a specific part of the fence that's being guarded by an SUV on the Mexican side. Nearby, I see a group of mothers and children who appear to have recently just crossed the wall. They tell me they're migrants from Michoacan. The mother of these children, who personally financed their trip, says she's willing to talk to me.
Mi pregunta es, ¿cómo fue tu vida en México?
Pues muy cruel, hay muchos asaltos, matación, todo eso.
¿Es muy pobre?
Sí,
¿Por qué quieres ir a los Estados Unidos?
porque como le comenté, estamos huyendo de la delincuencia y para un futuro para mis hijos.
¿Qué quieres para tus hijos?
Pues que estudien allá.
¿Hoy es tu primera vez en los Estados Unidos?
Sí, es la primera vez.
¿Y qué piensas?
Pues que, pues echarle ganas con mis hijos y sacarlos adelante y no, pues sacarlos de la violencia.
¿Hay mucha violencia?
Sí, mucha. Por la gente que andan pues así, como robando, quitando a los niños y todo.
¿Pero es peligrosa para los niños también?
Sí, es peligroso.
¿Qué tipo de trabajo prefieres?
Pues yo depende de un trabajo que sea honrado y todo.
¿Y tienes planes para asilo?
Sí, tengo para eso vengo, para que me den apoyo.
¿Qué significa asilo?
Pues que ayudan a las personas con los niños que vienen de México para acá.
¿Es un proceso fácil?
Pues yo digo que sí.
¿Y vas a sola hablar con la migra y decir yo tengo problemas en mi país?
Sí, así es.
Sí. ¿Tienes una ciudad que quieres ir?
A California.
¿California?
Sí.
¿Qué ciudad en California?
Victorville.
Victorville.
Ajá.
¿Tienes familia en Victorville?
Sí, tengo familia.
¿Fue tan caro el viaje?
Sí, fue caro.
¿Cuánto?
10,000.
10,000 para cada persona o todo?
Para los viajes y más aparte que nos piden 12.
12.
Sí, cada persona.
¿Necesitas trabajar para un año para eso, sí?
Sí.
¿Y tienes miedo de deportar?
Pues sí tengo.
Sí. Pero no sabes ahora si eso es en tu futuro.
Pues no sé. Dependiendo ya de que esté allá con la migra, ellos deciden.
¿Qué piensas sobre la migra?
Pues yo pienso que nos van a ayudar, ¿no? Para eso vamos. Que ojalá nos ayude.
Cuando tú fuiste joven, ¿tienes sueños de los Estados Unidos?
Pues sí tengo sueños.
¿Por qué?
Pues porque pues dicen que hay mucho trabajo bien y todo.
¿Piensas que todas las personas en México quieren ir aquí?
Yo digo que sí.
What the
¿Qué
fuck
piensas?
are these little fucks?
Ok, muchas gracias. Hasta luego.
Midway through my shoot, I had an interesting revelation. It seemed that almost every migrant of Latin American descent, particularly Mexican, that I talked to, said they were leaving their hometown because of threats from gangs or
I'm being attacked? Wait, what? Who's attacking me?
being kidnapped by the cartel.
Yeah, one of you.
In our previous episode, Arizona
Crazy
Border Crisis,
berserker.
we spoke to two different migrants, Alberto
Arms,
and Roberto,
Fury.
who reported
Fury's
similar
my,
stories.
is my kind
Por
of
los
one.
carteles nos sacaron de las
I'm
casas.
a Fury
¿Qué ciudad
warrior.
de México, Dios?
En Veracruz, pues es que gobierna el cártel de
Big
Jalisco.
time Fury
Sí,
warrior.
pues te piden cuota y como si no tienes dinero, ¿de dónde les vas a dar?
Sí.
Y pues te sacan de tus casas.
Somos el grupo Matacetas.
Y estamos amenazados que no podemos regresar.
Hay mucho movimiento de eso de las drogas y todo.
Sí.
Muy feo.
However, many locals and law enforcement personnel believe they're being disingenuous when they make these sorts of claims, because applying for asylum requires the proof of persecution or imminent danger. During the asylum-seeking process, it's typically not enough to declare that you're simply poor and looking for a better life elsewhere. You have to provide ample justification that it's actually dangerous for you to stay in your hometown or your home country. And even then, many claims are rejected. And so claiming that the cartel is personally after you is a really easy way to be granted
what's
asylum,
Crazy Berserker
especially
on that?
because there's no real intelligence apparatus to confirm or deny the authenticity of this threat. The concerned citizen of mysterious origin who we met at the Arizona border last episode claims that cartel coyotes that control the human smuggling route around the
Is that
Lukeville
instant
Gringo
attack?
Pass area
Okay.
are coaching these
I forgot how to
migrants
be a
in
warrior.
to
Hold on a
explain
sec.
themselves to press
let's fight
and
this
border
thing.
patrol agents.
The cartel or somebody is coaching them because they virtually say the same thing. Oh, that their lives are in danger from gangs in these areas.
Oh, it sure is
They've
an
been
attack.
threatened with kidnapping, and we've even found a notebook
Okay, let's do.
that had those kind of answers written down as if the person was rehearsing these statements to say when they were, when they confronted the border patrol.
To be honest, this made perfect sense to me. I'm not for a second dismissing that narco violence has had a significantly negative impact on the civilian population of Mexico, especially in places like Ciudad Juarez, where hundreds of women have been found murdered for no apparent reason. But I found it difficult to believe that cartels were systematically kidnapping local children in their own communities and squeezing their non-affiliated, already struggling parents for ransom pesos. It seemed like they had bigger fish to fry, like supplying the open-air trank market of Philadelphia or the fentanyl market of San Francisco. That being said, even if these migrants were lying, or at least greatly exaggerating the cartel threat, they've still gone to extreme lengths to reach the United States. So their situation back home was obviously pretty hopeless. If anything, it's more sad that they have to present their situation in this way in order to be able to engage our immigration courts. However, some people, like the gentleman we interviewed, believe even the poverty they claim to come from is also a lie.
The part that alarms me, what you used to see 10 years ago, you would find these cheap Chinese-made camouflage backpacks that were purchased by the crossers in these border towns. And they would get across the border. The backpacks would invariably break or something like that. Now we're finding these Louis Vuitton leather backpacks. We found one just the other day that was lying on the ground. We opened it up. In the top compartment, there was a bottle of cologne and a UCB C-cord. Neck pillows. This is a different demographic completely.
I decided to walk through the
Fire
Sonora Desert
wand,
to
what?
see if what the man was saying was true by
What the hell are these
inspecting
mossy
backpacks
tumors?
left behind by migrants.
You guys, guess what it is? USB-C charger. Staying fresh.
Another luxury item.
Yeah, it's kind of like a passport. It's an international certificate of vaccination stamped from the Republic of Guinea. See what else is in here? Oh,
there we
lo
go.
and behold, the aforementioned, totally authentic Gucci slipper. We spoke to this gentleman earlier, if you guys remembered, who mentioned that these migrants, unlike the old migrants, are bringing like luxury items like Gucci purses, Louis Vuitton flip-flops,
Louis Vuitton.
Prada bags, and stuff like that. And so as you can see here, someone has left behind a Gucci slipper, but as you can see, it's not actually Gucci. It says on the heel right here, Zaza. Obviously in America, Zaza is a type of weed.
Zaza. Where's Zaza? Where's Zaza? Zaza. Zaza. Zaza is the best weed in Florida. Best weed everywhere. Come on now. We don't bullshit.
But internationally, I would assume it is a variant knockoff of Gucci with the pattern, which leads to another theme, which is the mass production of knockoff luxury and designer goods in the third world. I don't know if you guys have been to Vietnam or Nigeria before, but the place is fucking Gucci down.
Another thing I noticed along the border fence were blue flags and water stations that were placed every quarter mile on the way toward the Border Patrol facility.
Yes, as you guys can see, pretty much all along the border fence, like this entire way, every quarter mile or so, you'll see these giant blue flags. I'm not sure who puts them there, but they're basically what I'm assuming to be emergency medical services. They have like a giant thing of water right here. So if you want to get some water, you can obviously get some water and shit. They have cups here.
Upon further research, these tanks of water and flags are left behind by Humane Borders, aka Fronteras Compasivas, an Arizona-based nonprofit that sets up hundreds of water stations along the border to provide hydration to migrants, which in the summertime, as temperatures can rise to above 120 degrees in the desert, can be a matter of life or death.
People dying out in the desert. They were dying because they didn't have any water. So the next day I read another article about this 2 people died because they didn't have any water. So the third day, it was a mother and a daughter that died out here in the desert because they didn't have water. So I got pissed off. I said I have to do something 7 days a week. We're out here in the field putting out water for the migrants.
If you're interested in donating, please go to humaneborders.org/donate. Last year alone, nearly 100 migrants died crossing the border in that 5-mile section where we filmed this video. And the sheer number of migrant deaths that occur in the Arizona desert as a whole, solely as a result of dehydration, is staggering. This in mind, 75% of migrant deaths happen in the summer months. So it's no surprise the winter months of December and January see the highest migrant traffic by a large margin.
Where are you coming from?
Yeah, I'm from West Africa.
Oh shit.
From Guinea, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy, but yeah, by God in power, you know? Respect.
How long has your journey been so far?
Oh, though. Nothing to say. That's fucked up, though.
How'd you get to Mexico?
Oh, yeah, so... let me drink a lot of water fresh after that, so we can talk, okay?
You want some water?
Yeah.
We got some, brother. We got some. How long ago did you leave Guinea?
It's been a 2 week. I live in Guinea. After Guinea, so Senegal, Dakar, to take to the plane to go Istanbul, 28 hours to escort. Then Istanbul to Bogota, San Salvador, Nicaragua. So you pick up the car to go to the borderline to Nicaragua and Honduras. You know, then you go to immigration Honduras just to take 1 people, you know. Then take a bus, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico. Mexico, the cop is Mexico is fucked up though.
The cops?
Yeah, my bro, damn.
Like the Mexican border patrol?
Mexican boy, Joe, I spending $5,000.
They extorted you?
Yeah, though. The guy is take me my watch, my heart, in my airport, you know, because I don't have the money, man, you know, in my pocket. I use my card, my bank, my car bank, you know.
So you finally made it to Mexico, and then what happened?
Then finally Mexico, we take one bus to go Chapachula. Chapachula is too far. Then, Chapachula, we take 1 bus again to continue Arriaga. Arriaga again, we take a taxi, the yellow car, then bike, horse, to the 3 cycles bike. After that, Cushitan. Then after Cushitan, Mexico City, we go to the bus station to buy a ticket.
Get the hell out of here.
We take a bus again, 1,070 miles.
From bus in Mexico City?
Exactly, yeah. 2,070 miles.
And you ended up near here?
2 days in the bus. You know, then when I arrived there, so I make it 2 days because I met the Mexican girl enter the bus station. She got so much love for me, but yeah, she followed me and that's the first meet. This is the Mexico bus station. You know her baby. Yeah, just to drink 1 beers again, though, you know, it's popping. Yeah, crazy, man. Yeah. Oh, back.
Yeah, I got a belt.
It's not easy.
There we go.
Thank God.
So what's your plan now, bro?
Is my plan for the next episode after these things, but difficult to explain it. But that's in God power.
As the sun began to set and darkness approached, we figured it was safer to go back to the Border Patrol facility. When we returned, the migrant population had doubled, and spirits were considerably lower than they were in the early afternoon when we first arrived.
¿Qué pasa? ¿Tienes hambre? ¿A dónde eres?
De Guatemala.
Sí. ¿Estás bien?
Sí.
¿Qué pasa, mi amigo?
Tengo hambre.
¿Sí?
Sí.
¿Cómo fue tu viaje?
Está mal. Estoy muriendo de hambre. Solo agua no están dando.
¿Quieres comida?
Sí.
Okay, yo tengo. We have food in the car, right?
¿Qué es tu nombre, amigo?
Miguel Yat.
¿Qué?
Miguel Yat. Miguel Yat.
¿Cuántos años tienes?
Tengo 34.
Sí.
Sí.
¿Tienes hijos o hijas?
Sí, tengo.
Oh.
Tengo hijos. Tengo 4. Son 6 mis hijos. 3 varones y 3 mujeres.
¿Y ellos viven en Guatemala?
Sí, vivo en Guatemala. Sí.
¿Y por qué viajes a los Estados Unidos?
Es que allá no tengo terreno, no tengo casa donde vivir. Por esa razón tengo que viajar. Sí, pero tengo que esperar la voluntad de Dios. Sí.
¿Crees en Dios?
Sí, soy cristiano.
Sí. ¿Católico o no?
No, soy evangélico. Sí, soy evangélico.
¿Y qué quieres hacer aquí en los Estados Unidos?
Quiero superar, sacar adelante mi familia.
¿Quieres trabajar?
Sí, quiero trabajar.
¿Qué tipo de trabajo quieres
Lo que
hacer?
sea, lo que caiga, yo rasque mi vida. Sí.
¿Tienes una ciudad que quieres ir o no?
Lo que sea. Sí. Mi cuñado me va a encontrar allá en Estados Unidos. Sí.
¿O es tu primera vez en los Estados Unidos?
Mi primera vez.
¿Qué piensas?
Sí. Sí, estoy pensando en viajar, pero lamentablemente salió muy mal el viaje. Va.
¿Qué lo pasó en la viaje?
Pues miren cuántos días, ya llevo un mes de venir acá y pasando en los bodegos y así está pasando también. Y aquí no hay comida, no hay nada. Sí.
¿Cuántos días fue tu viaje?
30 días. Me lleva 30 días ahorita, un mes cabal.
¿Fue caro?
Sí. Sí.
¿Cuánto cuesta para todo?
¿Cómo así?
¿Cuánto cuesta para usted viajar?
Como 100,000. Sí, 100,000 me están cobrando. Sí, y como para pagar eso, si no me voy.
¿Fue peligroso?
Sí, fue peligroso.
¿Por qué?
Porque nos venimos escondidos. Sí.
¿Sientes que la gente americana está bien?
Sí, sí, está un poco bien, pero no, pongamos uno, si va a encontrar uno, lo matan porque no lo conozca uno.
Midway through my interview with Miguel Yate, I began to put two and two together. When Miguel referred to having to hide a lot while crossing the border, he wasn't referring to coyotes. He may have been referring to one of the many civilian border militias that often lurk the perimeter of the border fence.
The local sheriff does not welcome their presence on Arizona's border with Mexico, but they say they're not breaking the law.
In many documented cases, these militia groups are alleged to have opened fire indiscriminately on migrants crossing the border fence illegally.
Sí.
¿Tienes familia o amigos aquí?
No, no tengo solo. No tengo nada.
¿Solo?
Solo vengo.
¿Vas a hacer asilo político?
Sí.
¿Es fácil para hacer eso?
Pues no sé, Dios. Me concedo un trabajo, va. Necesito recuperar mi familia, más seguro.
¿Tienes una esposa?
Sí, tengo. Y por eso tengo que estar.
¿Qué tipo de trabajo te gusta?
Pues lo que hay yo voy a trabajar. Lo que sea, sí, voy a hacer.
¿Puedes hablar inglés?
No puedo. No, solo español.
Pero puedes decir cosas como hello en inglés, ¿sí?
Puede ser, sí, aprendiendo.
¿Hay mucha gente de pobreza en Guatemala?
Bien hay.
¿Y cuando tú fue joven fue pobreza también?
Sí, por mi pobreza. No tengo casa, no tengo terreno. Es la misma. Por eso tengo que ir a ganar dinero para superar mi familia.
¿Dónde vive tu familia ahora? ¿En una casa?
Pues solo tenemos prestado una casa nada más.
¿Hay mucha violencia en Guatemala?
Pues la verdad que no hay. Solo pobreza, que no hay dinero, no hay trabajo, pues. Sí.
¿Qué es tu sueño para tu vida?
Mi sueño, pues, regreso un día, compre mi autobús o mi carro, a comprar mi terreno y a construir mi casa.
Sí.
Sí.
Soon after our conversation, Miguel's name was called, and he, along with hundreds of other migrants, began gathering in a single-file line to board commuter buses, which were told leave the migrant processing center at 6:30 p.m. sharp every day. Groups of 40 to 50 people, often called micro-caravans, began emerging and heading toward the bus to get a good place in line.
Hola, bienvenidos, ¿cómo estás? ¿A dónde eres?
De México.
¿Cuántos días fue tu vieja?
2 días ya.
¿Estás bien?
Sí, algo cansados, pero
¿Asilo aquí? No.
sí, asilo político, ahora sí que por problemas de la comunidad y algo que le pasa a mi hijo. Se meten mucho la gente mala con los niños, entonces de verdad yo quisiera que me apoyaran para sacar a mi hijo porque yo no quiero que a mi hijo le hagan ningún daño. Pues ahí sí yo preferiría algo como de cocina o en alguna casa a limpieza.
Sí.
Me he costado llegar hasta aquí y batallándole con mi hijo.
¿Y qué ciudad prefieres?
Fresco Valley, Arizona.
Ok, sí, muy cerca.
Sí.
¿Quieres decir una cosa para los americanos?
Pues que nos apoyen y ahora sí que nos vean con buena cara porque pues yo pienso que todos merecemos algo mejor, ¿no?
Sí. Good luck, guys.
After our brief interview, the mother and her son headed to the bus line, and to my surprise, more and more migrants began emerging from all angles headed toward the bus. I wanted to speak to some more people about what their journey was like and what sort of life they expect in the United States, but it seemed like the commuter bus was probably reaching its maximum capacity given the amount of people I saw gathered nearby. So I figured the best place to continue doing interviews was actually in line, where Border Patrol agents were checking migrants' passports and photographing them for documentation purposes. Despite a gentleman's earlier claim that we have no idea who these people are because they shed all of their ID after hopping the border wall.
What they do is when they come through the wall, they shed any type of ID. No one has any idea of who these people are.
Almost everybody in line had valid passports and documentation, like this pair of cousins who came directly from Guatemala and initially told me they left because of violence and extortions.
¿Cómo fue su vida en Guatemala?
Hay mucha violencia y la economía está muy...
¿Qué tipo de violencia?
Se le digo extorsiones.
Ok.
Extorsiones.
¿Y ustedes tienen familia aquí?
Sí, mis hijos están acá, en Los Ángeles, California.
¿Tus hijos están aquí?
Sí. Yo vengo luchando por estar con ellos. Intenté 2 veces, pero nada más me hicieron un retiro.
¿Cuántos años tienen tus hijos?
El primero tiene 21, la segunda 17 y el chiquito 12.
Sí. ¿Y qué tipo de trabajo quieres hacer?
Pues a mí me encanta trabajar en casa, en restaurante y cuidar niños, ¿saben?
¿Es difícil para cruzar la frontera aquí?
Sí.
¿Fue caro o no?
Pues la verdad que como venimos así viajando nosotros por nuestra propia cuenta, pero sí, 18.
¿Cada persona?
Sí.
¿Piensas que América es una tierra de oportunidad?
Sí, la verdad que sí, no queda la menor duda, sí.
Sí, ¿por qué?
Porque nos da oportunidad de trabajar y, o sea, ganar mejor que en nuestro país.
Sí, por eso sale de nuestra tierra uno, los abandona, pero es por algo bueno, para apoyarlos.
¿Tus padres son en Guatemala?
Sí, solamente eso.
I began to learn that it wasn't necessarily safety or quality of life that made America a better choice than Central America. You're actually much more likely to become a victim of property crime in somewhere like Detroit, New Orleans, Baltimore, or even San Francisco than you are in rural Honduras or Guatemala. It more has to do with our minimum wage and the dramatically inflated value of the US dollar in developing nations. For some perspective on just how lopsided our economies are, let's use the standard 9-to-5 American work week as a measurement unit. So that's 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday, totaling 40 hours of work every week. With our federal minimum wage, which is about $7.25 an hour, that would mean the average American minimum wage worker makes $290 per week before taxes. If you work that same job in Guatemala City, under the minimum wage that they set, which is weekly, not hourly, you make 846 quetzales a week, which is about $108. Meaning, even if you're making the bare minimum in America, washing dishes, picking berries, or cleaning houses, you'd still be making triple what you'd make in Guatemala or Honduras working the exact same job. It's almost common sense for a lot of these migrants to enter America, work as hard as they can, save up a bunch of money, and then go live a nice life back in their home country. And on a domestic level, it's actually happening in America, especially on the West Coast. Due to the skyrocketing cost of living, absurdly high tax rates, and overall mismanagement of California.
The LAO said lawmakers and the governor should consider billions in cuts to programs, including those related to education, the environment, and transportation.
Hundreds of thousands of upper-income Californians, especially those working in the tech sector, are stay-at-home remote work has become the norm, have fled the state en masse to reside elsewhere, in states like Arizona, Idaho, Montana, and of course, Texas, where the cost of living is significantly lower and the tax codes are much more relaxed.
Three big names in tech are all packing for Texas.
It has to do with taxes. The states that have been winning more recently are the states that don't have any state income tax or corporate taxes.
This mass exodus of Californians has disrupted the economies and political landscapes of many of these states, causing many Texans to adopt slogans like "Don't California my Texas," which refers to the progressive political views often held by California's economic migrants, who are, of course, seeking tax havens in red states.
Texas doesn't want you.
Politics aside, these migrations have been successful in saving Californians a ton of money in the long run. To be honest, I personally moved out of California for economic purposes as well, to save money, and to be able to provide my family with a higher standard of living. And I wasn't fleeing any kind of danger or poverty. So aside from being a federally tax-paying citizen, what's the difference between me and someone immigrating illegally? It almost feels like they have more of a right to immigrate to America than I do to a red state. It's not my job whether to say that illegal immigration is right or wrong, but I'm just saying, from a market, hustle standpoint, it makes perfect sense, especially if the border is wide open like it is now. Anyways, as the buses prepared to leave, a final group of stragglers arrived, speaking Bengali. They said they were from Bangladesh. I've never met anybody from Bangladesh, except a taxi driver in New York City 6 years ago who told me that the traffic in Bangladesh's capital city, Dhaka, was so bad it drove him into a suicidal state of depression, prompting a permanent exodus from his home country. I wanted to interview these migrants, but unfortunately, I don't speak a word of Bengali yet. Still, that didn't stop me. But bear in mind, as you watch this, that I have no idea what they're saying.
স্বাধীন দেশ গণতন্ত্রের জন্য উদার এই জন্য স্বাধীন এই জন্য আমি আসছি কারণ আমি জীবন রক্ষার জন্য আসছি আমার পার হুমকি হয়েছে আমার ভাই চাকরি চলে গেছে প্রাইমারি স্কুলের চাকরি করে সে প্লাস হইলে আমার ওয়াইফ একজন প্রাইমারি স্কুলের টিচার সরকারি টিচার মোসাম্মদ 7 অক্টোবর 1900 আমার জন্ম তারিখ 12/6/84 আমার নাম মোহাম্মদ আব্দুল আওয়াল শেখ পাবনা জেলায় আমাদের বাসা
Mohammed comes from Pabna district, a majority Muslim city of 3 million just west of the capital.
আমি এলডিপির সাথে জড়িত এলডিপিতে যোগদান করি 21 ফেব্রুয়ারি 2000 ওলি আহমেদের নেতৃত্বে এলডিপিতে যোগদান করি এলডিপি পার্টি আমার খুব ভালো লাগে কারণ এলডিপি পার্টির একটা নীতি আছে আর অন্যান্য পার্টির নীতি নাই আমলিক পার্টির নীতি নাই কারণ
This is all very, very interesting. Mohammed is a member of the Liberal Democratic Party in Bangladesh, a group led by Oli Ahmed, a revolutionary who was the first Bengali military official to revolt against the occupying Pakistani forces in 1971. This led to the Bangladesh Liberation War, in which Bangladesh came out on top and won their sovereignty. Oli Ahmed's party, the LDP, is allied with the even more powerful Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or the BNP, who in the past 2 decades have been extremely active in their resistance to the current Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's organization, which is called the Awami League. Since Sheikh Hasina came into power in 2009, the BNP and the LDP, which Mohammed belongs to, have accused the Awami League of rigging the elections and fixing the ballots to keep Sheikh Hasina in power, leading to mass protests and in some cases political violence, especially during the elections of 2018.
The opposition activists staged a protest in Dhaka. They wore black gags over their mouths to condemn the election.
Police fired rubber
bullets and tear gas to disperse stone-throwing opposition crowds
Jesus, this is
blocking
madness.
major intersection roads in the capital Dhaka. Many opposition activists and leaders were beaten up by the police and hundreds were detained. The opposition blames the government for the crackdown. The government said the programs by opposition parties are intended to destabilize the country and make people suffer.
After the 2018 election, tensions continued to escalate between the Awami League and BNP, leading to the arrest and imprisonment of opposition bloggers, teachers, activists, and journalists associated with the BNP.
More than 20,000 opposition leaders, activists, and supporters have been arrested since late October.
Last October, just months before the election closed out, Sheikh Hasina took things a step further, declaring the opposition party to be a terrorist group, calling for the immediate arrest of any and all public BNP or LDP members, including
আমলের পার্টির নীতি নাই কারণ একদিন আগেই নির্বাচন হয়ে যায় ওরা যায় না এলডিপি পার্টি করে আমি খালি জীবন রক্ষার জন্য এই দেশে চলে আসছি। যুক্তরাষ্ট্র একটা স্বাধীন দেশ, এদেশে আসলে আমার জীবন বাঁচবে। সেই জন্য আমার আব্বা আমি মোটামুটি ঢাকা আমার বোনের বাসায় আশ্রয় নেই। আমার বোনের বাসা ঢাকা মিরপুর, সেখানে আশ্রয় নেই। ওরা চায় যে খালি আমরাই ক্ষমতায় থাকি, স্বাধীন বলে কোনো কিছু নেই ওদের কাছে। স্বাধীন 23 সালে আমি বাংলাদেশ ত্যাগ করি এই স্বাধীন দেশ যুক্তরাজ্য আমার খুব ভালো লাগে। 20 তারিখে মেক্সিকো ঢুকি আর আমেরিকা আজকে 29 তারিখে আমেরিকা ঢুকছি। আমার ওয়াইফের কথা তুমি জীবন বাঁচাও, আমার আব্বার কথা তুমি জীবন বাঁচাও। আমি যদি আজ যদি বাংলাদেশ থেকে না আসতাম তাহলে আমার
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you. Thanks so much. To my surprise, the buses still hadn't left yet. So thankfully, this gentleman was able to get a seat. I knew from watching the news in previous weeks that these buses were a major source of controversy when it came to the border issue. As indicated by their Texas license plates, these buses were funded by Governor Greg Abbott, who in the past 2.5 months has sent over 75,000 migrants from Texas and other states into 6 sanctuary cities, notably New York City and Chicago, whose immigration and housing resources are being dramatically exhausted by these buses. So this is kind of the famous buses that I've been, hearing about in the news. As you can see, this big-ass charter bus just pulled up with Texas license plates. And right as it pulled up, they divided everybody into 2 lines. They're just going to load everybody up on these buses. I'm not sure where they're going to go, but yeah, this is it's bus time, baby. I decided to commit wholeheartedly to following this bus to wherever it would go, which I should note is not illegal, given that I'm a member of the press. The bus began on Puerto Blanco Drive and drove eastbound, back toward Arizona State Highway 85, a 2-lane road that crosses directly into Mexico where it becomes Mexican Highway 8. For reference, that's where we filmed the initial episode in this series, Arizona Border Crisis. We followed this bus for several hours, past multiple Border Patrol checkpoints, and ultimately onto an Indian reservation called the Tohono O'odham Nation, home to a highly sovereign Native American tribe that owns a 75-mile stretch of the US-Mexico border, much of which has no border wall. For this reason, the Tohono O'odham Nation is a hotbed of human trafficking and drug smuggling. Everywhere you look, there are signs for missing women. And the Department of Homeland Security has created a tactical patrol unit called the Shadow Wolves, comprised of military-aged Native American men from the tribe who use ancient tracking techniques to stalk drug smugglers through the desert. As we followed the migrant bus through the res, it abruptly made a left turn down a dirt road. Okay, so we just followed this migrant bus all the way from the border in Lukeville, about 120 miles inland, and now we are at an airport. It's a regional, small airport, and parked horizontally in front of us. From out of nowhere, a helicopter landed directly next to our car, and then tribal police came in from the dirt road, blocking us in, and then told us that we were not allowed to film on the Tohono O'odham Nation land unless we got a written permit from the tribal council. And since the tribal council wouldn't be in office until 9 a.m. the next morning, that meant we had to stop filming. The tribal officers were quite courteous with us, but still insisted that we leave and escorted us away.
If they're just concerned about that, obviously we're concerned as well. We have people out here who are following federal agents. All right, well, I appreciate you guys' cooperation.
Thank you for doing this story you're doing. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
The tribal police escorted us off the property, and we drove in the direction of Tucson. They followed us the entire way until we left the res. This left me with many questions. Seeing the tribal police obviously collude with the federal government to directly keep me away from documenting whatever they were doing was quite strange, and my mind ran wild with conspiracy theories about what the heck they were hiding. I realized at that point that I was only getting a small part of the picture, just speaking with migrants who had immediately crossed the border into the US. It seemed like the group really calling the shots and pulling the strings were the coyotes, who appeared to be playing our broken immigration system like a fiddle, and probably making billions every month. And so my new journalistic mission began.
I began to ask different migrants and other people involved in that whole world if they knew any coyote
who would go on camera and give me a full tour of their operations.
At first I thought this is going to be impossible. What kind of coyote would want to go on camera? But I learned that most coyotes actually see themselves as Harriet Tubman-style freedom fighters, transporting the poor and needy up north for a better life. And so I got in touch with some coyotes
who said they wanted a chance to explain themselves to the world.
But there was one problem. They weren't anywhere near Arizona. They were in a city called Piedras Negras, which is directly across the Texas border from a town called Eagle Pass, Texas. A town of about 28,000 people that in the past couple months has seen more illegal immigration than any other city on the entire border.
On Wednesday, Border Patrol agents apprehended more than 10,000 migrants.
Dark Shore.
Scenes like these have happened too often in
I
the
don't
last
wanna go to
month,
Dark
making
Shore.
Maverick
I'm
County
good.
the deadliest area for migrants in this 10-county border region.
And so I caught a flight to San Antonio, rented a car, and drove to Eagle Pass. At first, I asked the coyotes if they could walk over the border and meet me in the United States. But they said that was way too sketchy. So I enlisted local rapper Cheddar Blanco to escort me across the border.
I keep me a strap on my lap and a strap in the back. Rider with 20 bags of the gas in the trunk, gotta serve like the whole Eagle Pass.
So we're gonna go into Mexico. We're gonna meet up with Coyote, professional Coyote. Coyote's gonna be the person that crosses you. So the person that's, trained person to go through the desert, go through the river, get you to your pickup over here in the United States. So
if you want to see our new episode, Texas Border Crisis, go to our Patreon, www.patreon.com/Channel 5. As many of you know, Channel 5 has always been, and will continue to be completely independent and powered 100% by your contributions of $5.
Saludos desde Piedras Negras, Coahuila. Saludos para Piedras.
Channel 5 live worldwide, Hollywood and Vine. Fuck the authority, Channel 5 News. Channel 55. We don't fuck with custers. And 5 is the best number.
Hola, mi nombre es Andrew Callahan y hoy estamos en una ciudad que se llama Eagle Pass, una ciudad en Texas muy cerca a la frontera.
In our previous episode, we were in Arizona, Gringo Pass, covering the border situation there. But in the grand scheme of human traffic, Gringo Pass is small potatoes compared to Eagle Pass.
In the past couple of years, or past couple months, Eagle Pass has kind of been the center of the border crisis in the U.S., mainly because the border here is less fortified.
It's a river instead of a wall, and you can't build a wall in the river, I don't think. Plus, from a population perspective, Eagle Pass is in a pretty remote area. And so for a long time, our government paid it no mind.
The Border Patrol and ICE's budget is about $17 and $18 billion per year, and they spend most of that money fortifying more traffic borders, like the border between El Paso and Juarez, San Ysidro and Tijuana, and even Laredo in South Texas.
Which has caused the cartel that controls human smuggling routes along the border to shift their operations to this dandy little town, which up until this year was virtually unknown, aside from being the place where No Country for Old Men was filmed.
Eagle Pass has been on the map recently, more in the past.
Wait, what is where No Country for Old Men was filmed? What?
South Texas.
Which has caused the cartel that controls human smuggling routes along the border to shift their operations to this dandy little town, which up until this year was virtually unknown, aside from being the place where No Country for Old Men was filmed.
Eagle Pass has been on the map recently, more in the past 1, 2 to maybe 3 years, more than it's been like
good movie there.
Whole life.
The scene yesterday in Eagle Pass, Texas, has become quite familiar.
Texas has
I just wonder how they're going to film Blood Meridian if you can't go to Mexico now, or Texas, or Arizona. Well, I mean, I've been to Arizona, but I suppose you could do it there, but Mexico.
Thousands are crossing here, like we had like a couple weeks ago, like 6,000 crossing one night, like just caravans of them come through. Elon Musk came a couple weeks ago. I feel like, it's cool he's coming and putting some attention on it because we're trying to get help. Like this is getting out of hand. Like a lot of business owners are complaining. It's getting like to be a big deal,
In our previous coverage along the Arizona border, I got the chance to speak to many migrants of different origin. Some from Guatemala, some from Guinea, some from Senegal,
where this is going, but I guess I'm going
and
on
though
it.
their stories were all quite different, the common thread between them was economic uncertainty and political instability in their home country, which they were happy to tell me about. What I wasn't able to gather a lot of information about was the actual process of being trafficked by a coyote. And so after leaving Arizona, I came into contact with 2 coyotes who live in Piedras Negras, the town across the border from Eagle Pass, who had somehow seen my show, and so agreed to give me an interview, as well as a complete ride-along and a tour of their operations. However, their meet-up instructions were pretty sketchy. They refused to meet me across the border in Texas, and instead insisted that I walk over the border on foot to meet them on the other side. So I figured that just to be safe, I'd find a local bilingual friend to help walk me across and make sure nothing crazy. So I hit up local rapper Cheddar Blanco to essentially be my escort.
Riding with 50 racks, so I keep me a strap on my lap and a strap in the back. Riding with 20 bags of the gas in the the trunk, gotta serve like the whole Eagle Pass. And I got EP on my back, so I do what I do to put us on the map. Remember way back in like 2016 when young Cheddar had married the trap.
Cheddar is born and raised in Eagle Pass, and growing up had a lot of friends and family who were involved in the coyote business.
So how much does it typically cost to have a coyote transport you across the river?
It can go, I've heard different ranges. I've heard 5,000, 10,000. That's just like crossing the river. Then you still have to pay a couple thousand to like get taken up to San Antonio. Because leaving Eagle Pass, there's a checkpoint. Like, any city you go to from here, you're gonna get stopped by Border Patrol just to make sure you're a U.S. citizen, and then you're good to go. So really, you gotta pay another couple thousand to make it out of the city. So people end up spending like 20 bands, bro. Like to go from Mexico to Chicago, San Antonio, anywhere up where they're trying to work. They spend 15 to 20 bands for sure.
And do a lot of migrants cross without the help of a coyote?
A lot of them do. Surprisingly, like I came across some, and I even talked to some. They say that
where's this?
With zero money, they came over here walking, like from Venezuela, Ecuador, Colombia, like all these different countries.
Oh, Deathwing.
Where the country's just so bad, they don't
have
like
happened.
there's no light and water.
Jeez, I've never been here and seen
this. There's no food, like things like that. No jobs, obviously. And they said Mexico's like the hardest part, that the police will always rob them. Like $10, $20 that they might have, anything, they'll take anything off you. Like.
On Friday, they clashed with Mexican police here wearing riot shields. Some migrants jumped into the river using rafts to get across.
I'm very for them coming here and bettering their life. That's the thing. Like, I'm very for, like, I wish we had room for everybody, but there's just got to be a more structured way for sure. Like, I don't know the answer to it, but the answer to me is not send them back, because there's nothing for them. You're sending them back to where they can just get killed, starve, and live a life of poverty. Like I wouldn't say sending them back is the answer. We got to figure out how we can budget and how we can have them here, you know?
1 p.m. was the time that I was scheduled to meet the coyotes, who told me on Signal that they were waiting for me on foot in a plaza across the bridge. Cheddar told me it takes no more than 5 minutes to get into Mexico from Eagle Pass. No border patrol, no customs, no nothing.
We're literally right at the bridge, so a couple hundred feet over there is the river. We're gonna walk over the river, over the bridge. We're gonna meet up with a coyote, professional coyote. He's gonna take you through his route. You're gonna go probably like over some like desert areas. So basically you're just gonna go through what an immigrant would have to go through without papers, for sure. How to cross into the United States with no papers.
Let's do it, man.
Let's do it.
Have you gone over there a lot, like growing up?
All the time, bro. I come and buy medicine. I come and get my contacts. Like a pair of contacts is like $8, bro.
We first pass a toll booth with 2 attendants who barely notice us.
It's pretty crazy how easy it is for us to cross.
Yup. If you got $1, you're good.
Cheddar gives a teller $1 and the border opens.
Thank you.
So we're now basically entering Mexico, and it was that easy?
That easy, bro. Once we get to the end of this bridge, there is like a little hut you go through, but they don't check for ID. They don't pat you down, nothing.
They don't check for ID?
They don't check for ID at all.
But then on the other hand, is that a Border Patrol boat?
Yeah.
So that's the Rio Grande right there.
Look at all these kids running around. Jesus.
Oh, hell yeah. Hey,
They've been
congratulations! Oh my God. Yeah, they're getting married on the bridge, so he or she gets her citizenship.
What?
So yes, that's how it works.
Well, some say it's the right way to come into the country. Others argue it's an immigration loophole as they exchange vows and say, I do, at the doorstep of our border.
So one of them is probably like full Mexican citizen, and one of them does have U.S. papers, so one of them marrying the other allows the other to now become a U.S. citizen.
30 seconds after witnessing the fascinating border marriage, me and Cheddar arrived in Mexico and entered the plaza where the coyotes said they'd be waiting.
All right, so we're in Mexico now. We're in Mexico.
At first, we couldn't find them.
Oh shit, I think these fools are over here, bro.
Then, in the corner of the plaza, we saw 3 dudes. One with a gold chain and 2 others.
I think I'm gonna have to run there though. I don't think I have it on the... Yeah, I'm definitely gonna put them there.
What's going on, bro?
To my surprise, these dudes couldn't have been older than maybe 20.
¿Qué es la plan? ¿Qué vamos a hacer?
Vivir la experiencia, vaya, ¿no?
No, es mi primera vez.
¿Eso sería su primera vez?
Yeah, sí.
I told them it was my first time meeting a coyote, and they seemed a bit apprehensive. One of them began throwing up gang signs, and the other abruptly asked everyone except for me and my cameraman to leave.
Tú y tú, nada más.
Sí.
No, pues trataremos de tomar un taxi, iremos a punto donde lo vamos a llevar y para comenzar. Pero nomás les pediría que sean muy discretos
I have Eastville logging camp. That's good.
Hay varias cosas que pasan y no
Simon, be like as discreet as possible.
They say the larger our group is, the more likely we are to draw negative attention.
Sí, nomás queremos que sea discreto y si pues van a grabar en la cámara.
Do the Westfall stuff. That's always a classic.
Sí, por favor. Sí, porque no vaya a ocurrir algo mal. Pero pues bueno, vamos a darle, ¿no? ¿Quieren la experiencia? Venga, vamos.
To be honest, I was a bit alarmed here. My mom always taught me there was safety in numbers. And I crossed the border with Cheta Blanco and my two cameramen, Larry Susan and Elliot. That made our collective number a solid 4, which is a good number. But now it seemed like if I wanted to continue the shoot, I more or less had to cut my crew in half. So I had to do a stern risk-reward analysis in regard to the potential danger that could be ahead. After all, I have 2 dogs to take care of, and not everything is worth it for the content. I recall about 2.5 years ago when I first began to take journalism seriously, my parents sat me down and gave me a simple demand. No cartel, no ISIS. And it was clear that if I continued the shoot, I'd be breaking Rule 1. But if I'd came this far, I wasn't about to leave. And so I sent my crew back to Texas.
I will see you back in Texas.
All right, brother, be safe.
All right, see you guys.
Keeping only Larry Susan by my side. As we enter a nondescript taxi cab.
I should have just gotten a gold chair. I'm just gonna fly back there, fuck. Whatever.
Eat something? The taxi begins driving, eastbound, away from the border plaza and into the heart of Piedras Negras. For some context, Piedras is generally considered to be a pretty safe border town. It actually has the lowest homicide rate of any border town on the Mexican side, and is literally 10 times safer than Tijuana or Juarez. It's also where nachos were invented 80 years ago by a man named Ignacio Anaya, whose simple combination of cheese and tortilla
Ignacio, I get it. That's Better Call Saul.
Plus, according to the U.S. State Department's travel advisories, Coahuila, which is the Mexican state that Piedras is in, has a level 2 travel advisory, which means to exercise increased caution. So that's what I did. After all, there was no backing out at this point. We were in the complete custody of these 2 teenage guys who said they were taking us to a spot along the Rio Grande where they'd been permitted to operate by a larger parent organization, which will not be.
Yeah.
We continued to drive until we reached the outskirts of town.
Cool. Let's run to Westfall now. What up? Bo, Mark,
the Coyotes direct the driver to
Joshua.
pull off behind the Oxo, which is like the Mexican 7-Eleven. And soon, we're driving on a remote road past what looks to me like the projects or something. I'm not sure how to explain it. It looked like a trailer park built with concrete, if that makes sense. Abruptly, we're instructed to immediately get out of the car, which is alarming and honestly quite disorienting, given the fact that I assumed we were going to the river. But still, my options for escape are pretty limited, so I figured it was time to just play it cool and do an interview.
Officer, allá en el lado americano, está Army, también en el lado mexicano.
Okay.
Y esto también nos puede causar problemas a nosotros.
Sí, yo entiendo. ¿Es peligroso o no?
Es muy peligroso porque muchas muertes.
Es peligroso, pero sabemos.
Sí.
Es peligroso para la gente que no sabe.
Para las hijos y abuelas como eso.
Sí.
Sí. Nos ha pasado a nosotros que hemos cruzado niños.
They say that in terms of crossing the river, the shorter you are, the more dangerous it is. On a typical day, the Rio Grande is about 4 feet and 9 inches deep, which is just above the average height of an 8-year-old. And over 58% of Mexicans reported not being able to swim, so it's very possible for young migrants below the water depth to drown if they lose footing. Upon further research, I learned that most of the world actually cannot swim, and there's a direct correlation between socioeconomic status and swimming ability. For example, in Norway, where the median household income is $45,000 US, 97% of people can swim. But in countries like Bangladesh, Guatemala, and Guinea, where many of these migrants come from, that number is below 20%.
Oh, is this
so
Hogger?
It's safe to say that most migrants, if not all migrants, cannot swim. I don't know why I was so surprised to learn this information. I guess I just assumed that swimming ability came naturally to all humans as a defense mechanism from drowning. But maybe I thought this because I was so young when I learned to swim, the memory's been erased. Who knows? Life's a trip. Okay, back to the Coyotes.
I think I learned to swim when I was like 7 or 6.
Tal vez no
like
fue un buen camino para tomar este trabajo, pero no hay de otra. Es la ley más fuerte. Tienes que buscar por donde sea bueno o malo, tal que tengas tu familia bien.
Y eso es lo que intentamos.
¿Ustedes tienen mucha familia, hijos, hijas?
Yo tengo mis hermanos, tengo 18 años.
Ok, 18.
Claro, tengo 18 años. No toda mi vida me la llevo pasando trabajando en esto. Pues digo, fue difícil más que nada, va. Pues vaya, tengo 18 años. Hay chavos de 13, 14 que hacen lo mismo, va.
Sí.
Pero hay mucha gente, hasta da tristeza que miro en los periódicos noticias, gente muerta, ahogada.
He says that while this job is lucrative, seeing how many migrants drown in the river has taken an emotional toll on him.
3 migrants have died near Shelby Park in Eagle Pass. A woman and 2 children drowned in the Rio Grande River.
4 migrants, including an infant, have drowned in Eagle Pass.
Here comes the
Again,
parade.
it's unclear what can happen at any moment, and this is the risk that these people take. And, you know, sometimes there's kids involved.
He says that he tries his best to keep his clients safe, but the river is unpredictable. And so oftentimes, there's nothing he can do to save them, particularly if they've been carried away by an undercurrent.
El agua es peligrosa.
Hay veces que sube y baja.
En el agua, que abajo del agua se hacen remolinos y te arrastran para abajo y tú ya no tienes forma de salir.
They say that almost all migrants are well aware of the risks, but still cross the river anyway.
Porque, pues, vaya, todos quieren el sueño de estar allá en Estados Unidos.
¿Por qué hay el sueño como eso?
¿Cómo?
Pero Estados Unidos es difícil para más personas también. ¿Por qué todas las personas quieren ir al norte?
Sí, es que todos piensan, tienen la mentalidad de aquí, unos se van y los que están aquí y los nuevos que van, pues los que van creciendo les dicen que allá es lo mejor, pagan mejor, buena comida, buenas casas. Pero yo he estado allá y he vivido realmente, no sé, he estado encerrado, trabajando encerrado, trabajando encerrado.
Let's go,
es lo único.
let's go get his ass.
Pues, de algo
Auger
sí,
Hill,
pues,
yep.
Es lo único que voy para
Fuck 'em
hacer
up.
es ganar dinero.
Sí. ¿Y tú quieres ir a los Estados Unidos también?
No, realmente ya no. Ahorita estoy muy bien aquí.
He says that he has no desire to immigrate into the U.S. Having worked a minimum wage job in San Antonio, he feels that many migrants who cross the river have an unrealistic expectation of what their life will be like in the U.S. But nonetheless, he doesn't challenge their fantasies or try to give them a reality check. Instead, he takes their money. After all, behind importing drugs, trafficking migrants is the most lucrative trade in town.
¿Cuánto cuesta para en típico para personas?
Pues es que ahorita hay mucha gente haciéndolo. Pero, ¿cómo te puedo decir? Hay variedades.
Sí.
Depende si tú quieres llevarte a alguien de aquí de Piedras Negras hasta San Anto, son como $3,000 o $4,000.
$4,000 para cada persona.
Ajá.
Sí, es que ya las cosas cambiaron. Antes yo que recuerdo cuando estaba trabajando de aquí a San Anto.
Okay, what up, Auger? What's going on here?
Levantador.
Take him away.
El que te recoge alimento, el que cruza.
Take him to the stockades, yeah.
They say that just to cross the Rio Grande with a coyote is about $3,000 US.
Go back
but
to Gold Shower, you
transportation to
kidding
Austin,
me?
Texas is another $5,000.
Is that for the Hogger one?
However,
Yeah.
very few people are
Shit,
currently
well.
purchasing the full package,
Fuck
and
it, we'll do
instead are simply crossing the river and deliberately putting themselves in Border Patrol custody to begin the asylum-seeking process.
¿Tienes problemas con la policía o no?
No.
No. Es difícil para pero la migra a los Estados Unidos y Border Patrol, ¿hay problemas con ellos?
Sí, hay problemas con ellos, pero ellos nunca nos ven.
They say that both Mexican federales and municipal police turn a blind eye to their activities. But the U.S. Border Patrol has been very vigilant, and so we're heading to a place with far less Border Patrol presence than the port of entry. This, while safer for them, has a lot of negatives for migrants. Despite generally being portrayed in a negative light by the media, Border Patrol's job isn't just to apprehend and detain migrants. It's also to save them. Since 2014, Border Patrol has successfully executed over 25,000 rescues of migrants, many of whom are often found actively drowning in the river in Texas, which unfortunately happens almost every other day in the Rio Grande.
Mira, te voy a contar algo. Un día íbamos con un camarada, el que nos enseñó. Íbamos normalmente y pues eso es obvio, varios tienen muchas brechas, vaya. Y pues encontramos un cuerpo.
Let's go to Westfall and then I'll fly back to Gold Shower and turn that in maybe.
Miedo.
Yeah, let's do that.
A todos, cuando miras a una persona muerta, es miedo. Le calculaba unos 32, 35, ya estaba descompuesto.
Sí.
Si lo miraba muy bien, tenía como 3 días ya ahí, ahogado, tirado.
¿Ustedes trabajan para ustedes o tienes una boss?
No, normalmente teníamos una base.
Somos los boss.
Okay, sí.
Nosotros somos los boss.
They say they used to work for a larger parent organization in the area, but after many years of loyalty and good faith, they've been permitted to work on their own, so long as they're not stealing clients away from the
Old
larger
MacDonald.
organization.
Oh my God,
As we
it's him.
continue to walk, I ask them if they see themselves as
Lieutenant
criminals. They say
Horatio.
no.
Yo no me considero criminal. Yo soy una buena persona. Hago cosas malas para hacerlas buenas.
Sí.
O creo que se dice, hago cosas malas que parecen buenas.
¿Crees en Dios?
Let's go bribe some fools.
Creía en Dios. Mucho creía en Dios. Yo sé que existe, pero yo soy voto a la Santa Muerte.
Sí.
Like many people involved in Mexico's criminal underworld, these coyotes worship a deity called Santa Muerte, aka the Holy Death, the most controversial saint in the Catholic faith.
Oh yeah, that was in Breaking Bad.
Perhaps known most recently as being portrayed in Breaking Bad as the god worshipped by the Salamanca twins,
Yeah.
Santa Muerte, along with Jesus Malverde, are generally portrayed by the media as being narco saints. However, this is not the full picture. She's worshipped by many different groups in Mexican society who are living on the margins, where death is a constant force, and sometimes an inevitability, such as those living in an area that is constantly besieged by violence, those suffering from terminal illness, or, much like the adherents of the Satanic Temple in America, by contrarians who detest the influence of rigid Catholic values on Mexican society.
A lot of people join to some level to be kind of contrarian.
So it's no surprise that the Catholic Church officially condemns and rejects Santa Muerte. The Vatican referred to it as a devil, a demon, and an insult to the Christian faith. But on a larger cultural level, it's not supposed to symbolize the worship of death, but instead a symbol of hope, to help people deal with the existential dread that death can bring. Santa Muerte asks her worshippers to cherish death instead of being afraid of it. She asks that we not fear mortality, but accept it as all of our shared fates, and reminds us that death is not the end, but actually the beginning to the afterlife. It's thought that the first appearance of a death deity, or skeletal Grim Reaper type figure, emerged in medieval Europe in the wake of the Black Plague, which killed a third of the continent's population in under a decade. But there was also an Aztec deity called Moctlan Tecutli, the god of death, who was often appeased during ritual human sacrifices performed by the Aztecs, who, along with the Mayans, controlled most of Mexico until 1521 AD. So, this god of death figure existed in both Spanish colonial and pre-colonization indigenous religions, but almost fell into cultural obscurity until the Mexican drug war began in 2006, leading to a collective 360,000 homicides. Anyways, back to the interview.
Cuando tú fue joven, ¿tu familia fue pobre, no?
Y ahorita mi familia son de Michoacán. Allá ellos son ellos.
Y tú trabajas aquí y después la dinero das a tu madre y papá y hermanos.
Tengo hermanos y mi mamá. Lamentablemente mi papá falleció, pero eso no me agüita. Pues lo único que pienso es de que mis hermanos estén bien, que no agarren, que no miren un mal camino como yo lo estoy haciendo.
¿Tienes miedo sobre ese tipo de trabajo?
¿Miedo?
Sí.
Yo soy el miedo.
¿Verdad?
Así de ser. Todos tenemos miedo. Todos. Pero si no agarras el miedo, lo tomas, él te va a comer.
Sí.
Él te come. El miedo es puramente la mentalidad. Nunca no se ha topado de que, no sé, un vato muy fuerte adelantó un carro.
Sí.
Un auto muy pesado. Es pura mentalidad. La mentalidad es la que te está comiendo.
Vacas. 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 Vacas.
Slarks. You better have that damn clue.
Vacas. Lo siento.
After stopping briefly to admire the beautiful free-range cows, the coyotes let me know that it was time to plunge into the forest. Beyond these woods, they said, was the perfect place to cross the river.
Adios, vacas.
If you'd like to see our episode, Hopping the Border, go to our Patreon, www.patreon.com/channel5. As many of you know, we are completely independent and primarily supported by crowdfunding, which comes by way of your monthly subscriptions to our Patreon. So if you feel like checking it out, check it out. But if not, it's all good. Thanks for watching.
Channel 5 Live Worldwide, Hollywood and Vine. Fuck the authority, Channel 5 News. Channel 55, we don't fuck with customers. 5 is the best number.
The experience of trekking through the Mexican border is a surreal one. Everywhere you look, you see free-range cows, vacas, and signs asking not to leave garbage. Still, there's a ton of trash, but a lot of it's
Where's this damn clue?
Empty cases of beer, diapers full of poo, Venezuelan flags, printed copies of unanswered emails from U.S. Border Patrol, and a delicious half-eaten Snickers bar just for you.
Hay mucha gente de Venezuela que
Aquí hay mucha gente de todos lados.
As we begin to walk down a large hill, one of the coyotes stops us and tells us some important information.
No es que sea peligroso, simplemente es mucha cautela, porque...
Mucha cautela.
Para que así nadie sabe nada.
No saben nada de nosotros.
They say the cartel controls this particular human smuggling route, and that as freelancers, they failed to pay the coyote fee, or the cartel tax, which is usually about 20%. And they also didn't tell them we'd be filming. So, in the event that a collector rolls up demanding money, I have to act like we're just a couple of bros on a chill hike.
Okay, está bien.
Truly seeing no other option, I follow them down the hill and into the woods.
Alright, we're walking through the forest. We're about a mile from the Rio Grande, which obviously is the natural barrier into the state of Texas. So we're gonna follow the homies here. As you can see, there's like a ton of discarded underwear, socks, you know, like garbage, empty bottles of water, presumably left behind by previous migrants. It's estimated that just last year alone, you know, roughly 2 million people entered the U.S. this way.
As we continue to walk, I get my first view of the river. This spot, though, they say, is way too hot to cross. Not because of Border Patrol, they say, but because of undercurrents, which are the leading cause of death in the river.
The currents can sweep you under that water in just seconds.
Border Patrol agents rescued 2 migrants struggling to stay afloat in the fast-moving water.
Un oso de peluche de un niño. Hay veces cuando un familiar pierde a alguien en el río, es normal que cuelguen eso.
Just left a kid stuffed animal behind. Sí.
Mucha gente sufre, llora demasiado, solo para poder llegar, pero hay veces que me pongo a pensar y que digo que la gente es así pues porque son así. No sé si me lo puedo explicar. Todos quieren tener un sueño o una vida muy bien hecha, pero...
Like many others, don't understand why migrants
ain't nothing personal, buddy, but you're in the way, you attack me.
But his perspective is an informed one. He spent most of his life in a border town, and for a year lived in San Antonio and worked as a dishwasher, where he said he felt alienated, exiled, overworked, and depressed.
He estado encerrado, trabajando encerrado. Es lo único.
But does admit the service wages were much higher. Yet so was the cost of living.
Wait,
so he was
Infinity
able to make
Infantry
This
Gauntlets.
equation is
Holy
something
shit, I thought I got
very few
Infinity
economic
Gauntlets. That would have been
seem to be aware of,
sweet.
which points to a larger issue, which is the widespread proliferation of American dream propaganda in developing nations. Every migrant that I've spoken to, from Senegal to Guinea to Guatemala and to Bangladesh, believe without any prior experience or really contemporary information about the problems
back to gold.
Ah,
damn! I didn't turn the. I'll fly back and get that. It's fine.
A place of free elections,
it's
free
fine.
press,
Living the life.
unlimited social
You gotta
welfare
hide in the
programs.
box. Do that classic quest.
But unfortunately, this is not the case.
The Department of Justice says a rapper who bragged in a music video about getting rich from an unemployment scam is now facing federal charges.
America is in a bad spot in a number of ways, and it seems that most migrants are not aware, as I mentioned, about the skyrocketing cost of living yet stagnant minimum wage in every major U.S. city that's eroding the working class
minimum
in
wage.
cities like San Francisco, where many lifetime city natives have been priced out in the past couple
we're
years.
damned.
Yeah, it's fucked up. It's impossible
We're damned.
The rent
is rising. Minimum wage is the same. No parking. If you get a parking ticket, nigga, that's a whole check right there. You need to work 3 jobs just to live in a 1-bedroom in Zombieland.
But most migrants seem to be programmed with the opposite vision of America and seem to have been swindled by an aggressive, multi-generational PR campaign, which in my view has totally misled them and left them in the dark on very important information. They're unaware, for example, about the ongoing cold class war in all of America's major cities, or that the majority of US citizens have been strategically divided into politicized consumer groups by the investment firms who control the mainstream media. They've been using the border issue to stoke the flames of an internal culture war between Americans by pulling on liberal heartstrings with migrant sob stories, while simultaneously stoking conservative anger by blaming the global economic crisis on Joe Biden. But both angles are deployed by the same propaganda apparatus whose primary goal is to generate revenue by bringing clicks and engagement to legacy media, which will collapse, but not yet. In the meantime, legacy media's purpose is to distract and divide. Anyways, back to the forest. Me and the coyotes find a gap in the trees, and there she is, the US of A, home to bald eagles, corn dogs, gangsta rap, drive-through Starbucks, Roll Tide Rush Weekend, apple pie, and the Island Boys. I also see the barbed wire the newsman has been hollering about for the past couple weeks.
Razor wire remains up along the U.S.-Mexico border even after the Supreme Court ruling allowing federal immigration officials to remove it.
Texas has argued that the razor wire is repelling migrants from crossing into the country illegally.
It appears that President Joe Biden and Texas Governor Greg Abbott have been involved in a vicious dispute about having more or less razor wire right there. Biden wants less and Abbott wants more. But it doesn't matter because the majority of river embankments on the American side have no barbed wire at all. It's a non-issue and a distraction, designed to create controversy from afar.
Ya vamos pa' Texas, ya vamos pa' Texas.
He says this is a perfect place to cross, but he's worried it's a bit too deep.
Y si él mira que está hondo, busca otro lado. Si no está hondo, pues por ahí pasamos los 4. Los 4 agarrados y pasamos.
¿Ustedes van a pasar con nosotros a los Estados Unidos?
This may sound a bit amateur, but I didn't realize up until this point that we were actually going to cross the river ourselves. I was expecting just like a tour of their route, but obviously they had other plans.
Y luego ahí ya cruzamos para los Estados Unidos.
Sí.
Ah, sí, como $5,000.
God damn it. It was also going to cost us $5,000 a piece. This was not discussed, but I wasn't sure what to do.
So, eso es la primer parte.
La primer parte es esta.
Okay.
Y luego necesitamos conseguir alguien que nos levante. Me cuenta es un carro y ya nos sube hasta San Antonio.
Okay.
Pero tenemos que caminar.
Is there a quest there?
Haz cuenta hasta Uvalde. Háganse para acá y regresan.
At this point, it became quite obvious that I was in far too deep. The coyote told me that after crossing the river, we had to walk from Eagle Pass to Uvalde, Texas, which is over 67 miles on foot. How would this be possible? According to Apple Maps, it said it would take over 24 hours. We had no water. Plus, we apparently owe these guys $5,000. Looking back, I would have asked to turn around, but we were in far too deep. And while they're being pretty cool, you never know when a switch could flip or something. Abruptly, the younger coyote asked me to duck down because a border patrol boat was speeding by.
Okay. ¿Quieres vivir en los Estados Unidos o te gusta vivir aquí en México?
Sí, yo quiero vivir en Estados Unidos, pero eso ya va a ser después. Ahorita aquí estoy bien.
Sí, tú tienes 18 años, hay mucho tiempo, 19.
Sí, 19.
Okay, hay mucho tiempo para
hay mucho tiempo.
Entrar.
The other coyote asks me to give him the 100 pesos that I'd brought along for emergency purposes. He says someone spotted us and is asking for money.
Not ready.
Perhaps naively, I approach the man to see what's going on. The man who asked us for money is a bit strange. He seems to function as both a tax collector and someone who provides first aid and flotation devices to migrants. Whatever his title was, or who he works for, I don't know, but there was no option but to bring this man along.
Hola, ¿qué pasa? ¿Puedes decir tu nombre y dónde eres?
Me llamo... Soy de aquí, Piedras Negras.
¿Qué haces hoy?
Pues aquí apoyando a la gente que va cruzando, los estamos apoyando cruzan y a veces no traen su chaleco, no traen protección para el agua, ¿verdad? No traen salvavidas y pues los estamos apoyando, ¿verdad? En eso, para que no vaya a haber un accidente o algo, porque la gente no conoce el río y llega y nada más quiere brincar y cruzan con los niños en los brazos pues yo también tengo hijos y eso es lo que...
As we learned in our previous episode, the Rio Grande is 4 feet and 9 inches deep, and 58% of Mexicans reported as not being able to swim. So many children and older grandmothers who try and cross the river into America but are below 4'9" end up drowning.
3 migrants have died near Shelby Park in Eagle Pass. A woman and 2 children drowned in the Rio Grande River.
4 migrants, including an infant, have drowned in Eagle Pass.
Lo que muchas veces no miran ellos, ¿verdad? O sea que pueden tropezar o algo y en lo que se tropiezan el niño puede agarrar agua o algo. Y sí, pues a veces no les ayudamos, pero les avisamos, ¿verdad? Es peligroso. Aparentemente se mira tranquilo, pero sí hay lugares donde está hondo y puedes ir caminando y de repente pisas y te hundes y poquita corriente que haya en ese pedazo te lleva.
Sí, ¿qué tipo de trabajo haces?
Creo yo anda entre los $7,000 y $10,000 entrar a los Estados Unidos. Me queda cerca del río y vengo aquí al río a ver en qué puedo ayudar y a veces me dan algo de dinero, ¿verdad? Y
sí, gracias mi amigo para la entrevista. Sí.
It's the only way.
Despite his good Samaritan framing, we had no option but to pay him for his services. Still, apparently this is a bad place to cross. Our coyote points to the water to show me something.
Pues hay varias ocasiones que hay muertos ahí en las pelotas naranjas. Yo le digo las pelotas de la muerte, cada vez hay muertos ahí.
He points to the orange buoys in the river, installed by the state of Texas to deter migrants.
A disturbing discovery at the border. Security officials found a body trapped in the buoys recently placed in the river across from Eagle Pass.
The coyote says that on multiple occasions he's seen dead bodies trapped in the buoys. So we'll need to keep walking. But stops to tell me that he believes the Border Patrol boat from earlier has been following us using infrared heat sensor cameras. Out of nowhere, the first aid collector man starts hauling ass, and my coyote follows him. Naturally, I run after them for about 10 minutes until we finally get back to a new spot in the forest. Once again, they bring up money.
So kind of what they were saying was that right now the standard market rate for an average border crossing with a coyote is between $3,000 and $5,000.
I'm not sure how they expected me to pay them, but I wasn't worried about that. My primary concern was getting back into America. Once there, I'm sure we could easily arrange some kind of wire transfer or something. But I didn't feel that a remote forest in Mexico was the place to negotiate, so I kept going.
All right, so we just made it on a maybe mile-and-a-half hike through the woods, and now we're here on the banks of the Rio Grande.
I hear the sound of a machete striking a tree behind me in the distance, so I turn around.
¿Está bien? Okay. ¿Tú conoces? Okay. Alright, the guy with the machete just came out of nowhere. I guess it's kind of normal to want to chop down sticks and shit out here. But yeah, definitely not the most chill thing to see right now.
My coyotes assure me that all is well. He was just making sure that we paid the first aid man. And after a final plunge deep into the woods, we found ourselves at the perfect embankment. There were no orange buoys in the river here, and very limited razor wire on the American side. So they said we'd cross here.
All right, so as you guys can see, we're at the end of the journey here. Right here behind me is the Rio Grande. So over yonder is the United States.
Much like the initial entry point into the forest, migrants had left behind a ton of garbage here.
We got hella garbage here. We got a children's coloring book right here. I hope they're doing well, but I must say they did not do a very good job. But it's all good. Let kids be kids.
There was also a bunch of dudes there, just hanging out.
We got like a Mexican Ernest Hemingway type figure down here.
Just fishing and wishing people the best of luck.
Be careful.
Mexican Ernest Hemingway, that's funny.
Be careful.
I'm not sure why, but Ernesto's words gave me the confidence boost that I needed, and the coyotes said it was go time.
Come on, come on, come on. Nos vamos. Okay.
See, after stripping down to my boxers and taking off my shoes, the reality of the risk that we're about to take begins to set in. At this point, I wonder if this whole thing was worth it. After all, many migrants have died on this exact journey.
In 2019 alone, 109 people lost their lives in the Rio Grande River. And last month, the body of a young girl was pulled from that body of water after an unsuccessful attempt to cross.
I see a picture of a young boy on the ground and begin to wonder, did he make it across into America for a better life? There's no way to know. There was also no time to ask questions. The first coyote was already in the water, and it was my turn. Step by step, I inch myself down. And after a few small strides, I reached the water. From there was only one way to go. In. As I inched through the rushing green water, I began to feel the undertow, the rapid current beneath the river's surface I'd been warned about. And so my coyote asks that we link arms to avoid the rushing currents.
Yeah, these guys.
I see an entanglement of razor wire that lets me know we're almost home, and Larry Susan's close behind me. Thank God, the experience is finally almost over.
Grab it and the other.
I breathe a sigh of relief as my feet touch American soil. I was finally home, in the land of the free, where the bald eagle flies. Sure, we had 76 miles to go until Uvalde, but at least I made it across the river, and away from Mexico for now.
Eavesdrop on the thighs, okay.
Suddenly, my coyote ducked for cover and told us to be quiet.
Manos arriba.
Hands up, oh no.
Ven pa' acá, usted. Hands up, speak English? Get up, let me see your hands. Got any guns on you?
No, sir.
Face away from me.
We're journalists.
Usted, manos arriba. Bájate, súbete. You too, you speak English?
Yeah.
Stand up.
I couldn't believe it. Border Patrol had been watching us the entire time since we entered the forest.
Yeah, I can clearly hear him.
And set up an ambush on the American side to apprehend
You
us.
two, face away from me. Walk backwards over here. Hey, ven pa' acá, wey.
Immediately, my coyotes jumped back into the water, swimming back to Mexico.
Come back, over here.
Okay.
Get over here.
This left us alone in Border Patrol rescue.
For the Alliance.
There was one guy here, he obviously ran back, and then the two USCs right there.
After crossing the river, Andrew and his cameraman were arrested by United States Border Patrol for illegal entry into the United States. They did not realize this, but what they did was a federal felony offense called failure to report. After being arrested, they were driven to a migrant processing center and placed under detainee status and held for several days, much of which was spent in solitary confinement. Thankfully, Channel 5 personnel were able to recover their memory cards, which is how you were able to see this footage. But our team also took things a step further while Andrew was detained. Using details he gave to us over the jail phone, we hired a video game designer to create a graphic recreation of the things he saw and heard on the inside. And we compiled these animations and voiceovers into a documentary. If you'd like to see it, go to our Patreon.
Oh man, I might just have to pause and watch this next video. This seems too good to be true. I'm gonna do that. Sorry guys, I'm gonna end the stream and just watch this because I'm invested as hell in this
We are primarily
Callahan stuff.
crowdfunded and supported by your monthly contributions. Free the guys and free C-Mac the Loke.
Channel 5 Live.
Free C-Mac, yeah.
Fuck the authority. Channel 5 News. Channel 55. We don't fuck with custers. And 5 is the best number.
Fuck us.
Alright, I gotta end the stream.